Over 200 people have been killed in ongoing fighting in Sudan's troubled Darfur region. West Darfur has been gripped by deadly violence between Arab and non-Arab groups since Friday, drawing international condemnation. The clashes come as Sudan grapples with the fallout from a coup 6 months ago, led by Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. Joining us now to unpack why there has been a resurgence of violence in the area is journalist Mohanad Hashim. Mohanad, good evening. Thanks so much for speaking to us. Talk to us about what's transpired, certainly in the last few days, leading to this resurgence in violence.
Well, West Darfur particularly has been quite tense for the past 3 years. Violence first broke out there in December 2019. And since then, there have been several bouts of these communal clashes between Arab militiamen and the local Masalit community and or local militias in the area that are active. I mean, you have to understand that in Darfur, there is a peace agreement that was signed in South Sudan 2 years ago that has stipulated some sort of a settlement, but until now, there's supposed to be a joint security force that's formed there to maintain the peace, but until now that hasn't really come into action.
And what is the cause of these delays, though?
Well, many think that the cause of these delays is because mainly you have the coup that has had a knockout effect on a lot of the provisions for the transitional period, and plus there is a lack of funding. A chronic lack of funding since the United Nations mission peacekeepers there withdrew their mission back in 2020. But also, I mean, it's a very complex nature of local politics and tense politics between, you know, the nomadic tribes and the locals, and the local Masalit claim that some of these tribesmen are actually coming there to settle. They say that they are from across the Sahel, that some of them come from as far as Niger and Chad to settle in, or in this recent attack of violence, some claims are that some of these Janjaweed militiamen were coming from CAR and Chad to join in the attack on clinic that happened on Sunday morning, which left the 200 people dead.
Mohanad, it's ironic that days after thousands of people arrived there seeking safety, they then ran into these problems where they're being attacked. And as you say, 200 people have been killed.
Yes, I mean, it's unfortunate. It's in West Darfur in particular, you have to keep in mind that you have the legacy of 20 years of conflict from the early 2000s when you know, like the civil war there broke out because ethnic African rebels held arms against the then government of Omar al-Bashir, who then unleashed onto them these local tribal militias known as the Janjaweed, which then metamorphed in so many ways until we have today, for example, the Rapid Support Forces, which is the paramount paramilitary in the country, and its commander is the deputy to the head of the Sovereign Council, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. So the nature of the politics is becoming complicated because of that layer.
Now talk to us a little bit more about Janjaweed. Has the government lost control of this entity, do you think?
Well, what we know, for example, is what happened here is that 2 nomads were killed on Friday night. In retribution, we have this mounted attack that happened on the Sunday. So have they? It's a pattern. This pattern has repeated itself several times in West Darfur in the past 3 years. And clinic itself, for example, was attacked in similar circumstances back in December. And the latest type of these raids have happened in Jebel Moon. Certainly, there is an increase in the frequency of these raids and their ferocity. This particular one stands out. The total number of fatalities is very high. But it speaks to a vacuum of law and order that is returning, and it appears for now that nobody has a way of checking them except perhaps the commander of the RSF, Mr. Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, who's known also as Hemeti. And more recently, he's been commenting on the violence over the weekend, and he said that there should be an investigation, and the culprits who are identified should be, have the utmost type of penalties laid on them. So we don't know at the moment. The situation is very futile or in flux, and you have the Minister of Defense is currently in Jenin, the capital of West Darfur. And for today, for example, everything calm appears to have been restored, and we haven't heard any incidents. Whereas last night we still had reports of sporadic shooting and so forth.
Mohanad Hashim, thank you so much for that conversation, unpacking for us some of the trouble that's occurring in West Darfur.